You look great, guy. That's where I have to start. Let's return to the note, but on a more serious note. Tech is showing a lot of promise in Q4. In fact, you think tech might move an additional 10% in Q4. What is the trigger? We've been to Asia twice in the past 6 weeks, you know. The ratio of demand to supply is 15 to 1. Therefore, the second, third, and fourth derivatives are just beginning to emerge in terms of AI, even if it currently begins with Jensen from Nvidia, the godfather of AI. That, in my opinion, will be the driving force behind tech stocks rising by more than 10% this year and 20% the following year. The AI party, in my opinion, is still scheduled for 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock p.m. and won't end until 4 o'clock a.m. Why does 4 o'clock a.m. mark the end of the party? I mean, every time you use this metaphor, it makes me laugh. But seriously, you're claiming that demand has increased. That is what will cause the tech industry to grow by 10% in Q4. What specifically are you demanding? Regarding chatbots? For chips? What is actually causing this? The ratio of supply to demand for chips is 15 to 1. Regarding the AI revolution, businesses are lining up. We're only now beginning to see the use cases and the software. Palantir, the Messi of AI, is prominent in this regard. Take a look at names like ServiceNow, Salesforce.com, and Oracle. I think $1 trillion in capital expenditures for artificial intelligence is on its way to the tech industry. That, in my opinion, will occur within the next 2 to 3 years. A few weeks back, I had an interview with Alex Karp. We discussed you. In some of your notes we discussed you. He's a fan. He's a fan. However, Joe has had the correct perspective. He has been really optimistic about the AI winners, but he hasn't been particularly optimistic about the semiconductor industry as a whole. Correct? And what we just discussed is well encapsulated in this microcosm. Everyone is aware of the huge winners in the semiconductor industry, but there are also a number of businesses that are simply not seeing much growth since the global economy is doing a little And that is what we possess. Joe's made a wise decision in the case of Nvidia, I mean. He isn't planning for the next 7 years since it would be foolish to do so. However, he is likely looking out for a few of years. That was something we discussed last night. A lot of visibility is predicted for 2025, and then it begins to decline in 2026. At some time, the stock will begin to discount that. The momentum is there at the moment. The conference call also covered your work with Nvidia and the extension of that cooperation, which is something you've been putting a lot of effort into. What does that mean specifically for ServiceNow in the future? How important is that collaboration with Nvidia to your company, may I ask? It's an amazing collaboration, and we've been in close communication with Nvidia about how to further develop that relationship for a while. The new collaboration we discussed involves adopting the blueprint for Nvidia Nimble agents to co-develop native AI agents on the ServiceNow platform. That's all about providing our clients with turnkey, unconventional AI agents, and the first use case we're starting with is security vulnerability. The fact that our collaboration with Nvidia continues to grow excites us much. Nvidia feels like one of the other pillars of our economy at the moment. Using a chart, Tom explained this morning that Nvidia's market capitalization is greater than that of 5 of the 77 nations. This tech name is over-indexed to index funds and retirement plans. Could we sustain a bull market that is so dependent on Nvidia? Overall, though, more than 70% of the S&P's equities are still in long-term upward trends. Although Nvidia has contributed significantly to the market this year, we must also acknowledge that it has been moving sideways since July until this most recent breakout, which is really a slight one. Even if Nvidia was trading sideways, you could see that other parts of the market were doing well, and that the market was at an all-time high. However, I do believe it to be a predictor of technology and semiconductors. Since technology accounts for almost 30% of the S&P overall, its participation is crucial. We still enjoy technology. We improved our assessment of technology during the August drop, and AI continues to be, in my opinion, the central theme of this bull market. I think you have to think there's more to come on the AI side if you think the bull market is still strong, which we do. It must thus probably take part. However, take another look at the financials, which are at an all-time high. Industrials were performing well until today. Even though rates are rising, utilities, another industry where we're weak, are doing fairly well. He said that foreign businesses shouldn't be allowed to come to the United States, borrow money, and manufacture chips here, including the majority of Nvidia's state-of-the-art GPUs. Naturally, he is referring to Taiwan Semiconductor, which manufactures around 90% of the advanced chips used worldwide. The U.S. Commerce Department is expected to award it more than $6 billion to construct and expand its Arizona factory. Last week, Mizuho warned that Taiwan Semiconductor would suffer if Trump were elected, and city strategists are currently discussing the extent to which tariffs may raise costs throughout the chip supply chain. The latter is more important than the former. I believe this mean reversion trade has a probability associated with it. Look, I believe Meta's foundations are sound. Is it truly the Mag 7's finest performer? I suppose it most likely is. I'm not sure, most likely not with Nvidia. However, some of the other names are not covered by me. Nvidia is fairly reliable. But aside from that, you're correct. The answers to many of the questions yet to be found. There is still a lot of friction within Apple as a result of all the speech this week, including the downgrade today and the previous commentary that conflicts with some of the good China sales statistics. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang stated in a recent interview that he sees 100 million AI agents being used by businesses in the future. The rivalry between Salesforce and Microsoft is currently being closely observed, particularly due to the vast amounts of enterprise data that both businesses own. Earlier this week, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella predicted that AI agents would eventually be just as commonplace as apps. Salesforce has already introduced its agents via the Agentforce platform. This installed base, whether through gaming or supercomputing, is the concept of digital assets. We frequently discuss things like this in relation to Apple, but not as much in relation to Nvidia. It is implied that the existence of some competitors is irrelevant because Nvidia's consumers will continue to use the improved chips that the company has produced over the years. This brings up the idea of the so-called ecology. Many rivals make the claim that their processor is superior to Nvidia's, which is always up for debate. Even if it were true, though, it's probably insufficient. The chip isn't everything. It includes everything that surrounds it, including the chip, software, hardware, and systems engineering. Because of this, it's incredibly simple to purchase Nvidia's products, install them, and get going in a matter of days without having to make any changes. It may take months for many rivals' goods to become functional. AMD has even provided evidence of this. In order to get the systems knowledge that Nvidia developed naturally, they just acquired DZD Systems. In addition to gathering those capabilities on the software side, AMD has been making acquisitions. They haven't had as much success expanding such capacities, though. Although the silicon is obviously the main focus, there is much more to it than that. Everything that surrounds it makes adoption simple. Customers are easier to retain once they have become familiar with Nvidia's products. According to extremely optimistic investors, this indicates that Nvidia has a moat. It's something more robust and potent than just a first-mover advantage. The first-mover advantage is always the starting point. Now let's examine the software. Although CUDA encompasses many diverse concepts, it was first developed more than 15 years ago. That's a huge advantage for being the first. Other players are only beginning. Nvidia has a 10-year advantage, even though they have only been working to expand their ecosystem for a few years. Ecosystems are difficult to break once they are established. After decades, the Windows ecosystem, which includes x86 and Windows PCs, is just now beginning to break. Ecosystems have tremendous power once they are developed.